Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for turning up so punctually to the evening. We've got a reasonable agenda to get through tonight, so I'll just allow you to peruse that for a few seconds. So, tonight you're going to get a lot of information about how you, as students, can continue to shape your academic future with the decisions that you make over the coming weeks. They're decisions that are primarily based around your subject selections, whether your focus will be on the arts or sciences or a combination of the two, whether you choose a VET pathway or do a language, for example, outside of Concordia. But I don't want to start this evening off by talking about subject-related pathways as such. What I want to talk about is the idea that risk is an inherent part of making decisions. So students, I want you to use this time actually to consider what your values are and how they influence your decision making. And by this I mean, I want you to consider what drives your decisions. What or who do you listen to? Are your decisions based on what's expected of you? Are your decisions guided by your desire to serve others or for future financial gain? I want you to be challenged not just by the choices in front of you, but equally by what your heart and mind tells you about what you believe is your future. And there's a story I came across while I was researching these ideas. It's about two students at uni struggling to get through their courses. And this story, or at least the sentiments behind it, may apply to you as a student now, or it may well apply to you further down the track. Either way, I think there's value in telling it to you now. My friend and I got our degrees at the same time, hers in engineering and mine in maths. And these subjects are hard. There were classes we really had to struggle with, fight to get through, and we survived only by digging our fingers in with everything we had. Along the way, many of the people who started the courses at the same time as we did quit. They dropped out. But we didn't, and we've got degrees to show for it. And we came up with a saying. Allow me to explain. We'd rather fail a class 3 times and eventually pass it than quit and resign ourselves to the idea that we just don't get it. That kind of defeatism has to be expunged from your minds. And while there are things in your life that you can't do or have, most of the things that you desire you can have, but only if you treat failure as a part of the learning process. If you see failure as the end, then that makes you a quitter. And you can't succeed at anything if you quit. So if there's a subject that you'd like to choose but you have your doubts and you think you might fail, talk to the relevant people about it. Never mind what the person next to you is doing or thinking about. Your decision is yours. Get the full picture, get the advice, but at the end of the day, you have to make that leap and imagine how good success can be while also being at ease with the prospect of failure. And because we're a school built on Christian values, we consider how these Christian values can permeate our everyday lives, and that includes the decisions that we make. And I think this reading from Proverbs is quite pertinent this evening. So trust in God, but also trust in the people that God has placed before you to help you with your decisions. So to finish the welcome, I'd like to offer a prayer before I hand over to Mrs. McAuliffe. So please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, please help the young people with us to choose their path based on how they want their future to develop, based on a self-belief that will give them the strength to move past failure and embrace success. Teach them not only the humility to ask for help, but also the gratitude to realize their good fortune in having these choices in their lives. In your name, amen. So if you see me in the yard, students, and I tell you not to be a dead fish, you know what I'm talking about. Okay? Good luck with your choices. I'll now hand over to Mrs. McAuliffe, who'll work through the agenda with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amy, and very inspirational. I know, though, from the different places I've seen many of you, how brave you can be. I've seen it in Year 11 drama plays. I've seen it in stepping outside into things with the Unley Council. I've seen it with my friends in the Kalahari. I've seen it when you've bravely stood up for what subjects you want to choose. I've particularly seen in Nicola and Olivia and the other girls in Year 11 great bravery in the last week or so. But we might congratulate the footballers that are here tonight who have won their grand final. Well done, boys. So I know that when you're passionate about something, you can continue and take the failures in your stride and know that a success awaits. So the pathways that you might take, those of you that are doing the IB diploma program are likely not here as your subjects have been chosen, but for most of you here tonight, you'll be completing the SACE, and you might do that with traditional subjects in class, or you might do it through a VET program. The SACE, I'm not Mr. Layden, but on behalf of Mr. Layden, just to explain to you how you get the SACE, and you would have had this explained at this time last year when you were in Year 10, but just to reiterate a few things. When you were in Year 10, you did the personal learning plan. This year, you're completing 2 semesters of English, which needs to be completed at a C grade or better. For those, and the other compulsory sections are numeracy, so at least 10 credits need to be passed at a C grade this year, and the research project. The research project is a stage 2 subject, so you're completing that this year, but it does have the possibility of counting towards your ATAR. But it is compulsory that you complete that at least to a C level, which you're well aware of. So each subject that you do attracts credits, 10 credits per semester, and you need 200 credits. Now, we monitor that fairly carefully, so it's not something you need to sit down and count, so we keep an eye on what students are doing, and if they follow a timetable with a full load through this year and for next year, there won't be any problems at all. In stage 1, as you've noticed on reports, you'll get A to E's without pluses or minuses, but at stage 2, you will get the breakdown. All right, to get the SACE certificate, now we need to separate this from getting the ATAR. So to get the SACE certificate, you need to have a C grade or higher in 60 credits. So that's 3 Year 12 subjects that you need to get a C grade or better, C minus or better. You could choose from VET subjects, stage 2 subjects, or stage 1, which is your Year 11, to complete the other 200 credits, or to make up the total 200 credits. That's available on the SACE website, if you like, which shows how the general makeup of it is. So the green bit is your Year 10, the teal, almost Port Power teal, is 90 credits. Then you've got the rest of the stage 1 or 2 literacy, numeracy in the pink or mauve, and then your stage 2. So it just shows how much is made up from each section. So most of you will do, as I said, the minimum credits required easily, and you will do either 4 or 5 subjects plus the research project if you haven't completed in Year 11. If you are unsuccessful in completing the research project as Year 11, because you've been allocated time to do that, there won't be time to allocated for lessons in that in Year 12. So it's your responsibility to finish it up, but we will submit it on your behalf. 4 or 5 subjects, I think we'll break it down a little bit further, but 4.5 subjects go towards the ATAR. So I said keeping the SACE and the ATAR separate, you need 3. Year 12, you need 3 Year 12 subjects to... is that the dead fish attracting the cat? Sorry. Sorry. To complete the SACE, you need 3 Year 12 subjects passed at a C grade. To get an ATAR, you need 4.5. So 4 subjects at Year 12 and 4.5. The research project can be the half. So most students will complete 5 subjects at Year 12. Having the research project as well means you've done 5.5, and SATAC will automatically take your best 4.5 subjects from that. So they will work out which ones to include in calculating your university entrance. I think we said that. Okay. At stage 2, at stage 1, everything's been marked internally with some moderation occurring in different subjects each year. But at stage 2, the double checking of marks occurs for every subject, and there's external moderation as well as moderation of the internal assessment. So the purpose of that is to make sure that an A grade here is the same as an A grade at any school down the road or anywhere else in the state. So it's making sure that we are working on par with everybody else. So 30% is outside. It might be an exam, it might be a folio, depending on the subjects that you do, practical projects and presentations. All right. As I said, for university entrance, you need 90 stage 2 credits or 4.5 subjects. 3 of them at least need to be tertiary admission subjects, which most of ours are, the research project and all of the compulsory requirements. So you need to get your SACE. If you get an ATAR, you've pretty much got your SACE because you've completed the 4.5 subjects, but you need to have actually achieved the SACE and not missed out on that on a technicality to be able to get your ATAR. The ATAR is a ranking, so the universities use the ranking of the results to determine placements or offers that they make for university degrees. It goes from 0 to 99.95, so after they add up all the grades, you get a mark out of 15 to start with, which is converted to something out of 20 to be able to convert to the 90. Once they get a score, I did the same. I think there's about 3 pages of calculations in getting the final result. When I saw it at some stage, a maths teacher, it puzzled me a little as well. Once they get that grade, then they will rank them all. So you can't automatically assume if you've got 17s in everything that's going to work out to a certain mark out of 90 by doing straight percentages, because that grade that they get will then get ranked, so it'll be on percentage. From their 4.5. Nothing in Year 11, I think the significant point in that slide is nothing in Year 11, apart from the research project, actually counts towards an ATAR. All right, so those grades are for you to have an indication of what subjects you will be successful in at Year 12. So, for example, if you did 4 subjects in the research project, that would give you the 90 credits, and the ATAR is calculated as a percentile of those results. Or if your 5th subject can be counted along with the research project as well. So they will work out which is better. If your fifth subject, half of that is better than your research project, they'll take that half rather than the research project. But if the research project is better than half of your worst fifth subject, your worst subject, then that will count. You could do anything from a Cert 3 or higher in a VET course. The way that's worked out is they will take the average of your other 3 20-credit subjects, and that will become your score that you get for the VET course. All VET courses pass or fail, so long as you pass that course, then the average of your other subjects is what is included. So what are the VET subjects? Some of you have done them this year, but they're courses that are done in terms of training, so they're actually workplace training courses. You can get up to 150 credits for work that's done. It has to be off campus, and it has to be a registered training office. Some students will do that for 1 day a week, some will do it completely after school, and they may need to do workplace practice placements for a period of time. From a Certificate 3, if you didn't take a university pathway, you can go Certificate 4, Diploma. Diploma leads into a bachelor degree, and so there can be undergraduate study, an undergraduate study pathway from that. So there's a number of hours. Generally, 70 hours is 10 credits, but that's 70 nominal hours, so they might not spend exactly 70 hours there, but that the courses will designate an amount of time that they expect you to spend on homework as well. So 70 nominal hours will give 10 credits. Two qualifications at Certificate 1 level to be able to get any credits, and there's no limit on Certificate 2. But it's the Certificate 3 or 4 that goes towards the ATAR. So most courses will run a semester, some will run a term, some of them will need a day off per week. That logistically needs to be worked out with the school as well about timetabling to see whether the impact that's going to have on the other lessons that you take. So a conversation with Mr. Gogol about what VET courses you might like to do and what times they will run on, and then a conversation with somebody like myself or Mr. Francis about what your timetable will look like. Mr. Gogol didn't get capitals, but you can set up an appointment with him. All right, some of the things that our students have done are up there. There's a couple this year doing childcare and 3D animation. There's some Year 12s that are completing automotive and construction. So there's lots of opportunities, and there's many more than that, and they're out there to find it. I think we have, under the hospitality unit, there are some topics in, I was looking for barista, but it's called Cafe Espresso, so there's short topics and short courses that can be done that can attract small amounts of credit as well. Now I'm myself. All right, so for tertiary entrance, what are you going to think about in terms of the subjects you're doing if you're considering them for future study? From Careers Australia this year, their prediction are the boom positions or employment opportunities in the next 5 years are in those areas. What are you noticing? They are very creative, IT design based, and I think Mr. Francis was saying to me the other day that Google are liking the information technology or the computer engineers as well as the architects because of the design behind what they're doing. That doesn't mean that all the other jobs are not available. They're there, but they're the ones that are going to have more employment opportunities. In the next 20 years, Business Review Weekly is saying more digital things, analytic, healthcare, community care and personal services, food and food processing if you're thinking of food and hospitality. These are the sorts of things you need to look at and investigate yourself. What is your interest? If you're not sure, what are the things that are going to be available? Talk to people. We had a careers awareness evening recently for the Year 10s, and we highlighted the importance of having somebody that you can talk to about their career and the pathway they took. And even if you're not going to the same position or thinking of the same career, their challenges and the ways that they got there can be very useful. It's helpful to have somebody outside family and school that's actually in an industry that you can talk to on an occasional basis about how they chose their subjects, why they chose the subjects they did, and why they chose the courses they did. You'll probably find that a number of people also changed their tertiary degree after their first year, during the progression of the course, and some of them will do another degree afterwards because it takes that long for them to realise what their passion is and what they're doing. Use the websites. All right, both the SACE and the IB attract an ATAR. Next year, around about this time next year, you'll hear from me talking to you about how to fill in a SATAC application. So you register with them to be able to get offered placements. You register, you put in what your preferences are in order. You might need some help and some advice with that, and then the SATAC people will work out which is their best offer to make for you once your results have come in. So they'll use your results, and mid-January, after Year 12, you will get an offer. Oh, sorry, let's see if I can go backwards. The common application I've put up there, because that's an application you can do for universities in the US. It covers about 300 or 400 colleges over there. You can put in one application and be considered for all of those. That's another thing that I'm helping the Year 12s with at the moment, but for you to keep in mind. If you go to individual universities now, because you've got something in mind, you might find that their applications require different things. Some of them require folios, some of them require you to sit a test. So for Oxford and Cambridge, there's a TSA test that needs to be set for consideration, as well as your written application. Those are quite lengthy. So the Australian ones work automatically. Your result gets fed to them if you register with the appropriate tertiary admissions centre. So I've written SATAC and VTAC because VTAC's the Victorian one, obviously ours is the South Australian one, and there's one for each of the states. If you are going to do individual university applications or the common application, or you are thinking of applying for Cambridge or Oxford, you need to plan that early because it's quite a lengthy process, and it also involves quite a bit of input from one or two of your teachers. If a number of you are asking for me to write good applications for you or supporting documents all at the last minute, they may not be as good as I'd like them to be. So plan ahead if you're thinking of those things. Have a good look at particular university websites. All right, to apply for TAFE, if you've got a Certificate 3 already, no problems. If you have your SACE certificate, you're okay as well, and they're for all the non-competitive courses. If there's a particular thing at TAFE you'd like to do, it is helpful if you check what the requirements are there, know whether you need to complete your SACE fully with a passing grades, or whether you have to have your Certificate 3 finished, or whether you can do the assessment for basic skills of testing that goes on before, that occurs for entry. For university, you need to have completed the SACE, the IB, or a TAFE Certificate 4. When you're looking in the little orange book that's in your package, there is a list of prerequisite subjects and assumed knowledge. Assumed knowledge is not something you have to be considered, but the prerequisites are. Assumed knowledge means it'd be best if you do, but you could probably get away with it. You need to, for university, you'll also have to get a ranking from ATAR. All right, all of the universities now have a common bonus point scheme. if you are considering whether you are going to continue with your language or not, continue with your maths or your literacy, an important thing to keep in mind is that each of those will attract bonus points. You can get up to 4 bonus points and they'll make a considerable difference. Perhaps if you are in the 90s and the cut-off is somewhere in there, and you just need a little bit more to be able to be competitive, then the bonus points can make a significant difference. So my suggestion is if you're tossing up between whether to keep French next year or maybe you're doing the same thing in geography, don't tell the geography teachers, but if it's borderline, please remember that you have the option for bonus points for any English subject, mathematics subject or language. You need to get a C- or better. You can get a maximum 2 points per subject and a maximum of 4. There are also bonus points allocated for holders of school card, healthcare cards or Centrelink manifested income support payments. You can get up to 5 bonus points there. So there's a possibility of 9 bonus points available. For scholarships, you need to look at individual universities. Thank you very much for your time, and when you have decided what your subjects are, Mr. Francis is here to tell you what to do with those.
Thanks, Fiona, and thanks for coming out tonight. It's been quite an exciting night. On Monday we had 2 ducks trying to fly in, which was good, and tonight we had a visit from Professor McGonigal, so that's just wonderful. We've given you a whole lot of information in the last 30 minutes. And Professor McGonigal's just been shown the door. She'll come back in a tick, you watch. And you're probably your brain's probably going, oh my goodness, it's a bit full. Look, take about a minute or so just to kind of unwind and kind of relax so the next bit of information is exciting. You might want to think about who's going to get voted out in Bachelor tonight. Whether Kira or Nikki or Rachel lasts, I reckon I know who's going to get kicked out. Or you might be thinking about the basketball and gymnastics, which is on Olympics right at this very time. Whatever it is, have a chat to someone next to you for about a minute, and then we'll get back to some business. Cheers. Alrighty. Thank you very much. Okay, now here comes the pointy end of the evening, only because I'm talking and it's more important than Fiona. But what I'm about to tell you is a whole lot of stuff about how you make your selections, and it's kind of important that you understand how this rolls, especially if you're a student here. If you're a parent, it's also very important that you understand how it rolls, so when your child goes, I didn't pay any attention on Wednesday night, oh, Professor McGonigal's back. There she is. Okay, if Hagrid comes through the door, let's just bolt because he's just a giant. He goes again. When we come to subject selections, the process is very similar to what you've had before, but you've got to make some fairly key decisions tonight, as opposed to maybe some of the stuff that you did going into year 11. You've really got to kind of work out what's best for you and what you're thinking of doing post year 12. So now you're trying to cast your mind at least 2 years ahead to try to work out what you might be looking at doing when you get to university. So as Fiona said, there's prerequisites that you might be looking at. So engineering, you need to have a certain level of maths in it. If you're doing med, they might say that you need to have chemistry. If you're doing architecture or something like that, they might suggest that you do design tech. Really depends on the combination of subjects that you are wanting to do and what you want to do when you get to university. The university open days are on the weekend, but they're also very helpful if you flick them an email or you read some information that they've got there that will be able to help you about what subjects you need to have there. Listen to what other people are saying. Listen to your mum and dad. They probably have some advice. Talk to some other people, talk to teachers. Ask lots of questions and the thing that you choose to do next year and the thing that you do choose at the university isn't necessarily what your friends do, because they're different from who you are. So just try to think of what the things that I really like doing, what am I passionate about, what am I good at, and they're probably the things that you probably want to do in terms of your subject selections. If you are just following what everyone else is doing, you might end up doing a course that you really don't want to do. You also may change your mind lots and lots of times. Don't stress. That's natural, you can do that. There's a big curriculum handbook that we've got made. It's 100 odd pages. It's fantastic reading. It is on the website, the college website, so you can go there and have a look at it in PDF form. We do have a couple of hard copies floating around that you can have and request. We don't print them all off because in past we have done that and we found that it's probably only a few people that actually read the whole booklet. I encourage you to go to the school website, go to the senior school area, then there's a curriculum handbook there, click on that and it comes up. It's got all the information about every single subject you can study at Year 12. But don't get too kind of upset about that because I can show you another way of finding that out really easily, which you'll have at your fingertips. So if you want a hard copy, please give Carol a ring and she'll get back to you and let you know how to get it. One decision you need to make is 4 versus 5. Do you go 4 subjects or do you go 5 subjects? It's fantastic. They'll be good. He'll go away, or she'll go away. With 4 or 5 subjects, you need to make a bit of a call. As Fiona said, the 5th subject helps you if something goes horribly wrong, because the impact of that is halved, because what happens is it halves the machine will halve your lowest subject and compare it to your research project. If you've only got your research project there and you actually go and struggle big time in one of your subjects, you're gone, because there's no option to go for the better choice. 5 subjects works a lot better than 4, because what happens generally is you are a bit more of a fuller timetable, and what that means is you're going to be engaged and you're going to be working quite solidly. A number of times we have someone come to us in about week 4 or 5 of term 1 and say, hey, look, 5 subjects is too hard for me. My other 4 subjects are suffering. I want to drop a subject so I can concentrate on the 4. I can honestly say in doing this for about 20 years, I've probably met 4 kids who do that and actually go better in the 4 than doing the 5. Because when you're busy, you're going to work better, you're going to be more organised, and you're probably going to get a better outcome. If you're heavily involved in sport and all those kind of things outside of school, you just can't keep it together, then 4 is a great way of going. But you've just got to realise that if you just drop it back because I just don't want to work that tricky, I don't want to be that hard, I don't want to have a busy time at school, then the chances are that attitude is going to permeate across the other 4 subjects. We tend to say keep the 5 there because it keeps your options open. You've got a wider breadth of subjects that you can choose and have going into university. But also it means that if something does not quite go right in one of them, it can compare against it. You can use that to actually save you getting a bad ATAR or lower ATAR. If you've got flexibility in the subjects, you can do that, and it gives you the flexibility in terms of your ATAR, and it gives you a better workload because of perseverance. Okay, final points. When we make our subject lines up, we make our subjects based on what you choose. So it's all done on student choice. So once you guys get your choices in, then we look at building our lines. Our subject lines are just the combinations of subjects that we run at any one time. Once those lines are built, we actually can't change them because they're linked into facilities that we have, linked into staffing, linked into all the other year levels in the school. So you can change your mind once we've got everything sorted, but you may not be able to change your mind into the combination of subjects that you really want. Okay, so you might think, I'll put my selections in now, and once everything's sorted in October, I'll change my mind. That may work, or it may not work. So that's why this decision process is actually semi kind of important that you get it right. If we have a subject that hasn't got enough students in it to run and be viable, then we won't run that class. Okay, we will have a conversation with you if that's the case. But as a school, we need to kind of make sure that we don't run inefficiently, and we'll have kind of a cut-off of our classes. Please don't ask me what that cut-off is, because it is magical. No, it's not magical. It varies depending on the subject and the combinations and the kids involved and all those kind of things, but we try to cap it so we don't end up running into a bit of a pickle. The course selection process is similar to what you guys did last year going into year 11. So when you went online, logged in, got your subject preferences, did them, and went, yep, okie dokie, and submit them. Same process as works. You would have got an email from me probably about 4:30ish or 5, I can't remember when I did it, that comes from Web Preferences, which is the company we got. So when you go to your emails, it'll have a thing called No Reply on it, and that is your link to get you into your subject selections, and I'll show you how that rolls in a minute. The cut-off date is Monday, the 29th of August. So that gives you this week, next week, and then we cut off at midday on the 29th of August. So it's advisable that you get your selections in before then, because we will be hunting you down massively, because at a Monday night at about 7 o'clock, we are building our subject lines. So our turnaround time is really, really tight, because we want to have a meeting on Tuesday morning to work out the combinations of classes that we're running and look at what subjects we're doing. And we do that for our year 12s and 11s on that Monday night. So our turnaround time is really quick, and by about the end of week 8, we'll have a timetable ready to roll for next year. So what does that look like? Let's have a look. Hopefully this will work nicely for me. Just give me a tick while I just bring up your subject selection things for you. Cool. Just give me just half a tick. Cool, let's just go to the code. Cool. So you'll get an email from me that will say into it, no reply. When you click on no reply, you'll have an email that will look like this, and it's got Mr. Mead's name in it. It'll have your name at the top of it, so check that. It says, welcome to the process of subject selections for 2017, blah, 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 blah. If you've got problems with the site working or combinations or something not quite, kind of, you look at it and think, that doesn't make any sense to me, please email Mr. Mead and he'll sort it out for you really quickly. But what happens is, in your email, you'll have a big thing which is a blue link. That link will take you to your login page and no one else's. Please just click on that link and that will take you to the site. Don't try typing it out, because you might get it wrong and end up somewhere else. Don't do cut and paste. Don't delete the email. Don't put it in the bin. I can't think of any other combinations that people have done that doesn't work. So just click on the link. It's a lot easier. We've had issues with Internet Explorer not liking it that much, but Chrome works tickety-boo, so maybe just live in the Chrome world and you'll be fine. When you click on that link, it takes you to Web Preferences, and it looks very similar to this. Well, it looks exactly like this. And it will come up with your name and ask you to enter your preferences. So the way it does is we allow you you can change your mind 10 times. So don't stress if you put something in there and think, oh, I'll change my mind a bit later, I can change it around, but you only have 10 times to do it. When you go into adding new preferences, what will come up is a window that's really similar to the one that you had last year, but it hasn't got certain restrictions and stuff in it before. At the moment, we are making you choose 5. We're making you choose 5 subjects, because that's just what we'd like you to do. If you're not going to choose 5, once again, let us know and we will work around that. But we ask you to choose 5 to start with. When you come to your first one here, you can scroll down and pick any subject that you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be in an order. You'll notice that in your handout today, Psych isn't on the bottom. We changed our fonts on all our printing things and Psych got dropped off the bottom of the form. Please be assured that Psych is running next year. So if I click on Psych as my first selection, I can just scroll through. Oh, I like math methods, I might do that. On the right-hand side, you'll see there's a blue I button. If you click on that I button, it'll bring up all the information about that subject, which is exactly the same as what's in the handbook that you've got. That's why the handbook isn't really incredibly, massively useful, because it's all here anyway. So you might go, oh, math methods, that looks fantastic. Just in terms of the maths, if you're doing general maths now, to do maths methods next year won't work, because you need to have done the same level the year before. If you've done essential maths this year, doing, say, maths methods next year won't work. If you're doing maths methods this year and you're looking at doing general maths next year, you can go down that pathway. But just be aware that the maths is kind of transferable. For the people who have had kids in year 12 before and aren't used to the new terminologies, math methods is very similar to math studies, is what we've had before. General mathematics is kind of a halfway point between maths apps and maths methods. So we kind of think that our maths apps kids in the past would be choosing general maths, and then essential maths is a level that's slightly lower than what maths apps would be. So just as long as you've got your headset on that. Maths methods is the one that universities look for engineering and those kind of things. The computer engineering, I reckon Adelaide wants to have methods and spec maths, but there's not many that want that combination. So just have a look at what they're looking at. So if you read a uni guide and it mentions the word math studies, that's the same as maths methods. If they mention spec maths, that's the same as spec maths. Okay, that's what's been floating around a little bit. We went to the uni open days on the weekend and they're still referring to them in their old names. Anyway, so we've got math methods. We scroll down, and if we want to pick an English, you'll find what happens is we've now got 2 lots of English there. The SACE board is renamed. Oh, it's not going to go bigger. Excuse me. They've renamed their subjects. So English Literary Studies is the same as what English Studies was or is. English Literary Studies is the same as what English Studies was or is. English is the same as what English Com was. So if you're used to English Comms, that's English. English Studies, it's English Literary Studies. Once again, if I chose the English tab and clicked on it and then grabbed my explanation, it'll come up with what the explanation of it is. So just be aware that all those little hints are there. So I'm going to choose English. I'm going to come down here and grab, I don't know, something interesting. Modern history, geography. I'll go geography, seeing that Ms. McAuliffe bagged it earlier on. There we go. Great. So I've got my subjects. You'll now see that what it's done is it's going, that's pretty cool. The rigged red bar across the top has said you've chosen your 5 subjects. That's all tickety-boo. When you get down the bottom, there are 2 reserves. We encourage you massively, well, you have to actually enter the reserves, otherwise I won't let you do it, but we encourage you to put down reserves of a subject that you wouldn't mind doing if the other ones aren't available. I'll say that again. The reserves are subjects that you wouldn't mind doing if the other ones aren't available. So you might be tossing up between history and geography and think, oh, I don't really know, it doesn't matter, I could do both of them, it's fine. So then you'd put geography as a preference and maybe history as a reserve. The reason for that is when we build the timetable and when we start doing the lines, the machine will look for the top 5 and try to get the best fit for that. And then if that doesn't work, we'll force it to look for the first reserve, and it might grab one of your first reserves and puts that in as one of your selections. So if you can imagine we've got 150 kids with 5 selections, the combinations and permutations of them is nuts. And the machine doesn't go, oh, Fred, he put down geography. Oh, he really wanted to do food tech. I'll just put that instead of geography. It just looks at preferences. Okay, so it does that order. So just be aware that your reserve needs to be something that you wouldn't mind doing. If you do get allocated a reserve, we will come and have a chat to you and go, hey, you've been allocated a reserve. Is this okay? And you might go, oh, I'll try to change. But once again, remembering that our lines are built on what you've asked us to do the first time you've submitted them. So you've got to do 2 reserves, and I'll do something really stupid, and I'll show you what happens. So I'm going to pick, I don't know, where's the maths? I'll grab maths methods, and oh look, notice that as soon as I pick a subject that's been done twice, it'll smack me out of there. I'm going to go essential maths, and then I'm going to go general maths, and it should actually give me a really bad error here. I hope it does, otherwise it's going to be embarrassing. Let's go general maths, cool. If I then go proceed, it will then check my preferences and tell me if I've got an error, and hopefully it will come up with an error because I've chosen 3 maths and it shouldn't let me do that. And it's spinning. That's great. I've broken it because it doesn't know what it's doing. Yep. Look, it doesn't like me at all. So modern technology is absolutely fantastic. They always say whenever you do something with IT, never do something live. And so I've ignored that massively, and you can see, oh, yeah, beautiful. It comes up with restriction rules. It tells me that I can't do it. It's gone through and said, look, you've got 3 lots of maths, so you can't do that, or you can't do general. So it will tell you whether you've got a horrible error, and you've got to go back and fix it before we'll let you do anything else. Okay, so I go okay, and I go back in and I can change it. Now, the other slight anomaly that we have, I'll do some German, and I'll do, I don't know, classical studies. Cool. The other slight anomaly we have is with music. If you're a music student, you're probably already fully aware that we offer a whole stack of music. Some of them are practical and some of them are in class. So musicianship and composing and arranging are face-to-face lessons, and solo performance and performance special study and ensemble performance are outside of the classroom. All of the music subjects are worth 10 credits each. So this is where it gets slightly confusing. So they're basically like half a year's worth of subjects. However, we pair them together in pairs because then the SACE board will recognise them as a subject and we can get marks for them. So when you go to do your music selection, what you'll find is, I'm going to pretend I'm doing music down here. Where's my music? Cool. You'll notice that I've got music, composing and arranging and or musicianship. Click on that one there. And what that tells us is that you're going to be doing one of those subjects. That's groovy, but it will take the place of one whole subject over a year. And then down here, you might be doing solo performance or something like that. So you can come down and go to music and pick solo performance. Now, we know when you put those requests through that you're one of these guys that will be doing some sort of combination of music. and either Miss Elscourt or Mr Noble will come and have a chat to you about what combinations you are going to do before we start building our timetable, because everyone is different. And normally it's a small group of people, but you've just got to be aware that if you're only going to do that music, you need to tick on the box that says composing and arranging and or musicianship. Pick that one, and then if you're doing solo or ensemble, you can put that down as a reserve and we can attack that as well. If you've got other subjects that you would rather do as a reserve and not put down the music-y ones, that's cool. As long as you've got that musicianship and composing and arranging one tick, we'll come and have a conversation with you anyway, because we want to make sure that it rolls. Does that kind of make sense? Music is always awkward. Not because it's awkward, but it is. So the awkwardness is just how the timetable program runs with it. So when you do the submissions, it'll come through and a ticket will tell me that's all tickety-boo. Last year what people did, they did the submissions and it came up and said, this looks fine, and then they shut their machine down. And what it actually has done, it actually hasn't saved your preferences, because the next window says, do you want to save your preferences? Now that's a fairly logical thing, but for a teenage boy whose frontal lobe isn't developed yet, often they go, I've done it, slam the screen of the computer and go off and do something. No offence, I'm a boy. There we go. It's getting there. The time I said it was great. So it's processing my request, and it will come up and say, do you want to submit these valid requests? And that's when you go, yep. And what happens is it will take your request and it will actually store it on the database so we can access it. You can do this process 10 times. You might want to go in and change it. You might want to play around with it. You might want to come out and go, look, I've had a chat about my music teachers. I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. No worries. You can juggle that around. The big Submit Valid Preferences button is the biggest, most important one in the world. Once you submit that, it'll go, yep, no worries. It takes you to the portal. It'll save it. What happens is then it asks you to print a receipt of what you've done. We really ask you to do this because it kind of helps us in two ways. One, you've got to print it and your parents have to sign it, which means that they know that you know that they know that we know that you know what they know that what you are doing, okay? Because otherwise what tends to happen, we've had it happen a couple of times where a student puts down some requests, their parent rings up and says, oh, my son didn't get geography, and we go, well, your son didn't actually request geography, and they didn't know that thing had happened. So it's just a double check for you to have a bit of an idea of what your child's doing, and for us to know that you and us are on the same kind of page. You'll get a receipt that looks like this, and all you want to do is just go print, and when you go print, you can print it off. Keep a copy for yourself, and keep a copy, bring a copy into school with a signature on it. This is always saved electronically, so if something goes wrong and you've lost that, you can always jump back in and print it off again if you need to. Once the web preferences shuts down, which is on that Monday, the 29th, what will happen is you won't be able to access it after that time. So you can kind of roll with it as much as you want. Alrighty, where are we up to? We're up to about this one here. Go back to this. Cool. Right. So if you're kind of a bit confused about how you want to roll with your subject selections, and you want to have a bit of a counselling interview. If you remember from year 10 to 11, we met with all of you and your parents. We spent half an hour with you talking through stuff. If you want to sit down and clarify some of the issues you have, then please ring Carol and she'll set up an appointment either with me, Mr McAuliffe, Mr Amy or Mr Summereva, and we'll sit and have a chat with you to work out what the best combination is. And if it's just between your child and us, we'll do that during school time. If you want to come in, we'll organise for a time, either at school time or after school time, where we can meet with you. If you are looking at doing anything vet-wise, please email Mr Gogol and you have a chat with him. There is a vet slot on those selections as well that you can put down there as well. And the best thing to do is ask your teacher, your heads of department, those kind of things, if you are suited. If you are struggling big time in history and can't write an essay and can't spell the word German, then maybe history isn't the thing for you to do. Have a chat to them. They'll let you know whether they think that's right. Think about your mathematics. If your mathematics is one of those subjects which you might struggle in and you're absolutely killing yourself to do maths methods at the moment and it's taking every waking hour, you might want to have a chat to your maths teacher and say, look, I'm thinking of doing methods next year. Should I do that? And they might say, hey, no, have a look at general. That might tick the boxes for you. Once again, think about the prerequisites for uni and think about what your strengths are at the moment. Remembering at the end of the day that the decision that you make about your subject selections has to do with you, not your mates, not necessarily the ambitions of your parents, sorry to say that, but what's going to be good for you, because you've got to make that call because you're the one that's going to be doing the work next year. In terms of the process, if you don't get the selections that you like, we'll come and sit with you and try to work out a way of doing it and seeing if we can make something work for you. If you get to October, November and go, I've changed my mind, we can change the subjects that you've chosen, only if it fits on the subject lines we've got and only if we have room in a subject area. So if we're running a class of, say, 25, we're not going to throw another body inside that, especially at Year 12. Mind you, if we have a big waiting list and we have a big demand for a subject, suddenly something happens, we can split that class as well if we need to. But it's a bit harder to do that once we've actually built the timetable. You can also change subjects next year. So you might start off in a subject and about week 1 or 2 go, this actually isn't what I thought it was going to be, and I really don't think this is going to tick the boxes for me, and I'm not going to be passionate about it. I want to change. Once again, the change can only happen if it fits on our subject lines. So it gets quite complex, but I think you kind of understand how we roll. In terms of if you are an elite sports person, now by elite sports person I mean you don't go and play darts in the backyard with your mum and dad. Elite means stateside, national squad, SACE or TID. If you're one of those kind of people, there is a course called Workplace Practices where you can do your sport as a subject. If that's kind of what you think you might want to look at, it can replace one of your subjects at school because it's done through Marden Senior College. You still have to do a Year 12's worth of work, but your training and some of the stuff that your coach does with you gets counted towards the coursework. So just thinking if you are an elite person like doing maximum hours outside of school. We had a rower here, a couple of rowers here that would do 6 till 8:30 in the morning and then 5 till 8 at night, 4 nights a week. So if you're doing that, plus your Year 12, you'll want to be able to kind of have some sort of life there as well. So just be aware that if you are operating that kind of level, please put down on your form other and then come and have a chat to us about how that rolls. We use Marden Senior College for that, and they're very, very, very good at the way they deliver their course. The most oddest one, if that's a word, we've ever had is a person, a girl a few years ago, who was a game fisher. And she said, I do fishing, can I do that as my sport? And I kind of giggled and then thought, that's really unprofessional. So I said, yeah, what is it? So then I rang Marden and said, oh, guess what? We've got someone who does fishing. And they went, oh, yeah. And she held the world record for the biggest sailfish caught by someone under the age of 16. So she was actually a real-life fisherman. And then we got it all sorted out for her, and she came back and said, you know what? I don't want to do fishing as my sport. And I went, oh, you're kidding. She said, I'll use motocross because I ride for the state in the motocross team. I thought, oh, for car out. So she did that. So if there's things like that that you want to look at, let us know. In your information pack, you've got a bit of paper or stapled together like this. Tells you what people to go and talk to if you need a hand. Tells you the websites to go to and have a look at. Looks at the combination of subjects you can choose and asks you to think a little bit about your pathways. So if you're doing architecture and design and you've put down everything that doesn't have any relationship to architecture and design in your subjects, e.g. art design or tech or something that's a bit spatial, then we might have a chat to you about what that looks like. On the last page, there are all the subjects there, of course, excluding psychology, but it's there. In terms of subject names, I've mentioned this before, you've got English Studies, which is English Literacy Studies for next year, English Comms is English next year, and those music selections we've made you aware of as well. You've got an email from me already about web preferences that takes you there, and you can make your choices 10 times, and you've got up until the 29th of August, which is a couple of Mondays away, to make those decisions. Please be aware that at midday on that day, it will cut out, and you won't be able to access it ever again. So just be aware of that cut-off time. Just remember, it's about you and your subject selections. Take your time, think it through. If it's clear in your head already what you want to do, put your preferences in straight away. Print off the form and be done. We're nearly there. If you just want to mull it over for a bit, that's cool. If you want to have a chat with someone, that's really cool as well. But just be aware that that deadline is sitting there. Rightio, questions, fire away, see how we go. Yeah. I'll do that. Okay, scaling. Scaling, if you cast your mind back about 6 or 7 years ago, scaling was a big deal. Please forget that completely. Every SACE subject has a 30% external component. Every SACE subject has a 30% external component. That means that that component is marked, moderated, assessed, examined by people outside of the school. So that has made the level playing field a bit better. There are some subjects that traditionally would have got scaled, which means that English communications might have got a 14 as a raw score, and then they might have scaled it down to, say, a 13.5 or a 12 in the old days. So people will be going, oh my goodness, I'm not going to do English communications because it's going to get scaled. I'm going to choose English studies because that won't get scaled. If you're no good at analysis, pulling apart plays and pulling apart books, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot by choosing English studies based on the fact that the scaling will help you. Scaling, choosing a subject because it may get pulled down a smidge, is not going to get you the result if you are not passionate about it and you haven't got the skills to do it. If you choose, I'm looking at Mr. Gahadi, if you choose chemistry, physics, maths methods and English studies, and you're not very good at chemistry, not very good at physics, and your maths is pretty dodgy, but you could do general maths, design tech and PE, and you're passionate about that and you're really, really good at those subjects, I can guarantee you that second lot of subjects are going to get you a far better score than that first lot of subjects. The way scaling works, which is a bit hard to explain because it changes for every single student across the state depending on the combination of subjects that you do. Fiona, cut in if I get it wrong. A B in maths apps might range from a 16.5 to a 17.2, depending on how you rank in the class compared to everyone else in the state that's done the same combinations of subjects that you have chosen. So if you come to us and say, hey, I reckon I'll get an A in maths apps or general maths next year, what's that going to be? We can say, well, it's probably going to be between 16 and maybe an 18.2. But we can't tell you exactly because we don't know what you're going to do, where you're going to sit ranking-wise with the class, where you're going to sit ranking-wise across the state, and how that mark from a grade will going to convert to a mark out of 20. Does that kind of make sense? It makes it as muddy as ever, but that's the process that do. The thought process behind it is if you do a subject that is academically rigorous, let's pick chem, and compare that to, say, a solo performance in music. In chem, you'll have all these things that you do, then a 30% exam that you won't see before you're walking through the door. For solo performance, you might be rehearsing a piece over and over and over again, and then you perform it in front of a group of moderators. Mathematically, tell me if I'm wrong, they'll say that the chemistry is academically more rigorous, so therefore a B in that might be worth a 16, but a B in solo performance will only be about a 15.5. Now that is just a mathematical thing that's put on top of your scores by the universities. It's got nothing to do with the school, it's got nothing to do with SACE. Personally, standing in front of a group of people and singing for a 10-minute solo would scare the bejeebers out of me, and I would think that would be a lot harder than doing a 3-hour chem exam which I could practice over and over and over again. So pick the subjects that you're passionate about, pick the subjects that you love, and you're probably going to get a far better mark than actually picking a subject just purely based on the scaling. Fiona, is that about right?
I think so. I might just, at the risk of saying the same thing a different way, if you were picking two maths subjects, maths methods as compared to general, the scaling is minimal now, I think was one of the main points. So trying to guess which way the scaling goes is going to be very difficult. But say you pick math methods, which is a little bit harder, and you got a score about here. You pick maths general, and maybe you would get a score about here. The scaling is going to bring it to the same. So you're going to end up with the same thing if you try to pick things according to scaling. What's going to make the difference in your mark is your passion, as Mr. Francis has said, and your interest in that subject. That's going to have more of an impact than what the scaling that the SACE board will do. Yep, is that right? I'll stay there. Okay, further questions? That was a trap, wasn't it? Okay. That was very good. And I was supposed to talk about scaling and I missed it. Sorry.
So she forgot the scaling. In terms of tonight, we've screencasted this live, so this has gone streamed to YouTube. We've had one person watching it, how exciting. Which will mean, though, for you guys, is that you can then, we'll send you a link to it so you can actually come and watch it again. All the jokes about a cat, you'll understand. No one else will have any idea because it never got in the shot. Yeah, they wouldn't see it come through. That'll be made through to you via an email in the next couple of days. It will go to the parents, so you can watch this over and over again. It goes for about an hour. It might be completely boring. However, just a bit of a hint, and also for the kids here as well, on the right-hand side of YouTube, there's a little cog. The cog will allow you to change the speed of the YouTube clip. So it will go up to playing twice as fast or half as fast. So as I said to the other guys a couple of days ago, when you get to Fiona's bit, put it twice as fast, skip through it. When you get to my bit with all the jokes, slow it right down, just live it over and over again. It's going to be fantastic. So if there's any other questions that might be one-on-one questions, please hang around and ask us. If not, thanks so much for coming out tonight, and I hope it was helpful. Cheers. I'm just going to go turn that off. Last time.